It's Wellness Wednesday on Thursday. It's Wellness Wednesday on Thursday. This is the video I wanted to make yesterday. I did make it yesterday, but the audio was screwed up and I ran out of time. But I really want to get it out because, a lot of people are talking about Clair, Obscur, Expedition 33. And it does deal with some mental health concepts that it is allowed to not be textbook perfect, ironically, based on one of the themes of the game. But I want to do this sort of companion so that you can enjoy the game for what it is and still get the facts on certain things regarding mental health. There will be spoilers about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So if you don't want spoilers, stop watching now. No hard feelings. If you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Sign up for a Leanna Care session yourself, like and subscribe. That's the tea. That's what my shirt says. It's Alistair from Husband Hotel. So, getting into it, Clair Obscur, the art style and the writing style is about extremes, right? Light, shadow, big extremes of feeling, of narrative, of this, of that. And the game deliberately withholds information so that people kind of have to fill in the blanks. That's the obscure part, the shadow. Certain things are very, very clear, but the shadows create this contrast. And some people are reading a lot into the shadows. And that's the point. It's to go on this big emotional journey, right? To fill in the blanks. But from a mental health perspective, there are some things it does really, really well, and I want to give the game its flowers. There are also some things I really want to caution people on regarding what they do in the game. Don't do that to people in real life, right? And people are allowed to be flawed in games. This is not a criticism of the game. I just want this piece to be here so people can enjoy it and we can just all be responsible about it and it's all good. So the first thing I want to talk about is the way, painted Verso in the game is sort of an embodiment of being mommy's perfect little boy. And his father being Renoir is a complicated dude. And they show him as everything's a lesson. And one of the things that complicates analysis of the characters is there is the bits of their soul trapped in the canvas, which are embodied by kind of shadow black rose petal figures. There are the actual painters, which are the ones with the crater faces. And then there are the painted versions of the characters who look like people. That's painted Verso, Alicia. We see painted Clair is hidden in a sub-dungeon. She's in the Flying Manor region of the game. Clair is the most obscured character in the whole thing, but she's a very important character because she's one of the two we see in real life. Right? Now, painted Verso, being perfection in the eyes of his mother. Now, perfection is subjective, right? And my take on Eileen as a painter is, Renoir, the real life artist, did portraiture to make money. And portraiture is obviously trying to capture the person's image. They've got to be recognizable or they're not going to want the portrait, right? And it's different from his impressionistic work that came earlier because money. And so to me, Eileen's idea of perfection is taking what is and putting it on the canvas. She's the only one that creates lifelike humans. She's a technician. Whereas Renoir, he reminds me of academics, and that everything must be a lesson, everything must be a moral, everything must be a metaphor. And he's more of a critic than a creator. He exists in opposition the entire time. And that's something that a lot of people are not working into their analysis of the game. Because you've got these two warring parents. Mom and dad are literally fighting. And then you've got all the kids that are dealing with that. And they all deal in different ways. Alicia Mayel has forgotten herself. Clair is just trying to keep it all on lock, right? And Verso is buckling under this expectation of perfection. And there is a sentience to Painted Verso, which is why, in case anybody's wondering, I picked the Mayel ending. I picked the Mayel ending first, rolled back, did the Verso ending, so I saw both. But Verso is making choices. He's not just programming, because if he was Eileen's programming, he'd be moody but somewhat obedient. He'd be altruistic because he saved his sister from the fire and died in the process. Instead, Verso is intensely selfish, and that is what tends to happen to people with perfectionist parents. I find that Renoir's defining his son by masks is really uncharitable. I mean, if you want to describe Renoir in one word, it's uncharitable. The game uses controlling to describe him a lot. More on that later. But, you know, no one can be perfect. And of course, when the expectation is perfection, people are going to wear a series of masks, because if they're ever authentic, then that means they're a full-fledged person. And so they're flawed. And so, you know, this idea of perfection is so, parents do it. But, it is very toxic, and the results, the masking, the flat out lying, the manipulation, that all does come with expectations of perfection. No one is going to be perfect. If you expect yourself to be perfect, it's not going to work. If you expect other people to be perfect, there's going to be disappointment, right? You have to get okay with not being perfect. Now this moves into, you know, the idea of maybe something that it's a missed opportunity in this game because they were going for the extremes. And this is where I want to be very careful not to go into, it's not the game I wanted. I don't want to Werewolf Cookbook this game. But art therapy is something that is very effective for people who can't put words to their emotions, but they can kind of get it out on a page. Like, art may be an easier way to express certain big feelings than words. And putting art and writing in a power struggle for dramatic effect. I know a lot of writers who went, really? You made us the bad guy? Okay, but that's, you know, that's not relevant to this video. Eileen is obviously, the mom, is using this art as a soothe. And it's the whole thing of, she believes art is the search for perfection. Renoir believes it's about control. Again, there's control again. I'm a little concerned about, you know, the people who do side with the Verso ending just ripping away someone's cope whether it be drawing, whether it be writing, whether it be video games, trying to force people in the real world out of the canvas, it is a re-traumatizing thing. And this, if you take away one thing from this video, it's that, yes, it's set in 1905. So they don't have modern... In 1905, they did not have modern vocabulary for trauma, but the game uses modern vocabulary for a lot of things they don't have in 1905. They have modern sexual morality in the game. So it's sort of like there's a blur there, which is why it's really, really important to hear this next bit. What's going on with Aline isn't mere grief. There's an element of trauma to it. There's a concept called traumatic grief. It's a term that's used. It's not in the DSM-5. It's not in the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual. But it's an understood concept. It is trauma. The symptoms are being preoccupied with the deceased, experiencing pain in the same area as the deceased, having upsetting memories, feeling that life is empty, longing for the person, hearing the voice of the person who died or seeing the person, being drawn to places and things associated with the deceased, experiencing disbelief or anger about the death, thinking it is unfair to live when this person died, hence Aline blaming Alicia, feeling stunned or dazed, being envious of others, being lonely most of the time, having difficulty caring about or trusting others. Okay? Aline checks every box. It is not mere grief. And this idea that Renoir is in the right to force her out of her traumatic grief. You can't. You cannot force someone to not feel something. All you can do is force them to mask. They're not okay. They're not going to be okay. They're just going to be pretending to be okay. And that was why I personally could not get behind the Verso ending. And it's a game. It's not a mental health manual, right? Both the endings leave you feeling deeply uneasy, deliberately. I personally would have preferred a little bit more balance, but it's not my game. Because I do think that the yes, it's Clair, Obscur, light and dark. There's no in between. There's no midtones. Fine. It's right on the name of the game, but I would have preferred a more balanced ending if you bother to do a lot of the sub-content and actually find out more of the story and learn from Clair that, yeah, Renoir isn't trying his best. He's too controlling. He is. That is what my takeaway was in that game. And a lot of people, because there's addiction metaphors with Aline too, with they hide the canvas, they just find it. It really did feel a lot like hiding the alcohol or hiding the drugs from an addict, right? I heard that metaphor used a lot. And unless you deal with the very deep pain, whatever the addict is numbing, they are going to either go back to their current addiction or find some sort of, like, what's to stop Aline from just creating, you know, new Verso in a new canvas? Okay, she doesn't get his childhood canvas. There isn't that connection to her. Renoir is just going to destroy it with apparently Mael/Alicia's help. But that doesn't solve the problem. Aline will, without proper support, find another thing to avoid her grief. Traumatic grief is someone not dealing with the feelings of grief because they are hard, because they are overwhelming. And yeah, if you live with someone who's constantly going, suck it up, buttercup, and trying to control everything, And he says, it's controlling the chaos. Well, that's not healthy. Grief is incredibly chaotic. The 7 alleged stages, the 7 components, don't happen in an orderly fashion. You bounce around. People need to be able to grieve. And forcing Aline to do things instead of figuring out what she needs. And she's going to say, I need my son back. Like, yes, that's denial, right? She's stuck in denial. She's not moving through the stages of grief. Again, it's not mere grief. It's trauma. There is a component of trauma, and forcing someone to deal with trauma before they are ready re-traumatizes them and makes the trauma worse. Have I said this emphatically enough? Okay, that's really important, because I've heard people discuss Renoir's behavior as relatable and, oh, we need to do this with my own family. Do not do that with a traumatized person. People did that to me. People tried to force me well when I was a teenager, and it only made it worse. You cannot force someone to not feel pain. You're just causing them more pain. And the more you treat that person like a problem, the more you treat them like a burden, the more they're going to push down those feelings that they need to feel. Telling them it's okay to grieve. Telling them it's okay to feel that pain, to feel anger is the big one, especially in women. And a real challenge with Aline as a character is we spend a lot of time with Renoir and Verso as characters with faces. Aline, for most of the game, is the paintress. We don't see her as fully human. We don't see her with a human face. Clair, similarly. The men from the real world are the Clair. The women are the Obscur. The women we spend most of the time with are Ciel and Lune, they say Lune, even though it's spelled Lune, who are painted people. And then the painted version of Alicia that is Mael. So the women are all, some people would say, fictional. The men are real people. And Aline is this unknowable monster. So it's really easy to pull mom's a crazy addict. It's like the feminine mystique in the Belle Epoque era, right? Which players can be adult enough to empathize with Aline anyway, recognizing that is a person, even though she's not represented as one. Because who's going to do it? Her? Apparently there was a family, but I don't quite get that particular part of the game, why we don't see painted Aline more. But, there's no one advocating for her. Her children cannot be expected to. Versa's allowed to be mad at his mom. Clay is allowed to be mad at her mom. Alicia is allowed to be mad at her mom, right? But Renoir is doing a lot of talking. Yes, it's painted Renoir some of the time. But Renoir is very represented in a way that Aline is not. And players have to have enough maturity to see through that point of view cheat. And I do think it says something about addicts and people and people with mental health issues and the way they just become their conditions and are dehumanized. And again, the game allows you to believe what you want to believe, which is why I'm making this video. Because, real life is not a choice between obsessive madness and obsessive control. Yes, if you want to do the light and shadow thing, fine. Big extremes, cool. But real life is not like that. I did find it really interesting that that it's a video game that tells people, oh, don't spend all the time in Unreal Worlds. Go out and touch grass. You know, even though there's a shit ton of grinding and more optional levels than game campaign. I'm not sure what to make of that, but I ended up not going that way because I admit the combat became a grudge match. I did complete the game. I have done everything but the Simon. I haven't completed the Simon fight. I've gotten to the second stage though, so I got that bit about Clair and Simon. The part I absolutely loved, and why I didn't like, another reason I didn't like the Verso ending. Notice I said I didn't like, not that it was bad. But they do wonderful things in this game with the inner child in Verso. The main world that Verso created in the canvas when he was a little boy and Clair played with him in is glorious. And there's a lot of really good stuff in there in terms of understanding how connecting with the hurt and neglected kid inside you can help you be happier. And it comes through Esquier and Minoko and the Gestrels and their very simple way of viewing the world. Now, I do not see Minoko's collecting of feet as a fetish thing, because don't forget, this is a world created by a little boy. He's not functioning on that level. That was just something funny and gross and ooh, warrior, right? They really capture the simplicity of boyhood in that world. And I think we need to let that be more light than shadow in the world, which is part of the reason I couldn't destroy it. Because let's face it, some of the most joyous moments in that game come from Esquier. You know, reach for the sky. Time for a swim. I am speed, right? If you can make simple things in life that joyous, that's a huge part of good, happy math, as I call it. I do that. I found I had to do that. Not every day can be a huge success. You have to time for a swim. You know, I'll sing while I'm cooking. Apparently you're supposed to sing with these Invisaligners in to get your vowel. I still don't have all my sounds back. I'm having trouble with the word silent. It's constricting my ability to do the lent part, so working on it. But I found that mentality and the way Esquier keeps it simple very helpful. Because intellectualizing can slow down emotional processing, but intellectualizing can slow down emotional processing. If you're overcomplicating things to the point that your mind is becoming a death trap, you're not helping yourself. I loved how Esquier just squared there being a painted Verso who's not the other Verso who created the canvas, right? As they're cousins. Alicia and Mael, they're cousins. He just found an explanation that worked. He found an effective heuristic and ran with it. Not overthinking everything is really, really important to happiness. Sometimes you can come up with a solution that's just good enough. Remember what I said about avoiding perfectionism. Esquier's a glorious, it's like a Taoist thing going on. And maybe that's not accidental because they did the gold mending in Renoir's jacket is a nod to the fact that Japanese art came to Europe, inspiring artists like Gustav Klimt, who did the gold leaf in his art at around that time. And then when you get to Minoko, I mean, first of all, he's the most fun party character to play. But the whole thing with Noko and the gestural rebirth and not remembering, it's such an interesting little boy imagination metaphor for the fact that I think Verso didn't feel nurtured. He had to just sort of erase himself. You know, he made a mistake. His parents got upset with him. He wasn't perfect anymore. He had to have some sort of death, be reborn, and everybody just forgot what he did. Like, fine. Okay, you're perfect again, right? But the whole thing with Minoko and Noko, where you go back, and Noko was Minoko's mentor who died and was reborn, but he doesn't remember Minoko. And Minoko is, and this is why, okay, the problems with not letting go in this family don't begin with Verso's death and Alicia's burning. Hold that thought with the burning. Clearly they go back to Verso's childhood because it's in there. The inability to let go. But when Noko's resurrected again, and Minoko goes back to the Gestro village, and Noko's there and doesn't remember him, Minoko cries like a little kid. Because he was created by a little kid with little kid sensibilities. And I do think part of grief, part of getting through grief, is being able to cry like a little kid. And the fact that Minoko's named after the family dog is a nice touch. And a real life dog, according to the credits of the game. But sometimes you do have to cry like a baby, because when we are children, our emotions are purer. We may not be able to name them, even though everyone feels them. And that was a moment of unintellectualized grief. He was just letting it go. And that's what his parents can't do because they're obsessed with perfection and control. His emotions were uncontrolled at that moment. Yes, awesome. At some point, you need to do that to process grief and all other feelings. If you don't let yourself feel sad and scared and angry, you're not gonna feel happy. If you're tamping down those emotions, nothing gets through, right? So that was really beautiful stuff. And that stuff, to me alone, makes the game worth playing. That was excellent. I was so thrilled by that stuff, which is why I just couldn't do the Verso ending again, because watching the fictional copy of himself literally kill his inner child, just, maybe there's something I'm missing from the world building, but the little boy that's left over in that canvas doesn't seem unhappy, right? He's just drawing. Whereas adults Verso, painted Verso, and it's interesting because the gestrals forget, the painted people remember, even with their incarnations, and it does speak to that helpful forgetting that we need. You know, the sting has to fade at some point, or we carry it forever. I do want to say something about the treatment of people with disabilities and choice, especially people with chronic pain conditions, because I have one. I've been fucking up a lot. This week has not been my best week, and because on top of all the other pain, there's been a heat wave, which is increased inflammation, but also my mouth, it's a lot. I've been making a lot of mistakes. And I was horrified by the idea that Renoir was trying to force Mael/Alicia to... She's so burned that she's missing an eye and she's not able to speak. And the choice is to live a full life in the canvas, even though in the real world, her life will be shortened. So it's quality of life versus, well, this is real and you have responsibilities. And I mean, you can't believe Verso's line about you'll be okay. You have a talent, because he lies to get what he wants. But the idea that she is forced to live in a body that has failed her and causes her ongoing pain when she could have something else just robs a person with a very severe disability of agency. And I mean, it's muddled from the fact that the player's choosing who to side with. If you were Mayel, if Mayel was you and you were Mayel and you were making choices as Mayel, it would be one thing. But since you're the player from the outside choosing to side with Mayel, fight as Mayel, or fight as Verso, you're taking a side. And the only side you can take in there ethically is Mayel's, because it's her life. Verso wants to end his, fine, he can have that. That's it. He just wants to die. He's, I said to somebody that Verso is very depressed. He has no hope. He wants to die and he's willing to take everybody with him. He's having an existential crisis. He has the psychological profile of a school shooter or a mass shooter. And when I told this one person this, I said, you are 110% correct. And like I said, Clair Obscur, big. That's not a criticism of the game. Let's just see it for what it is, right? His thinking is disordered. And it's interesting that, a character created out of traumatic grief has his own traumatic grief. Aline created him because she didn't want her son to be dead. All he wants to do is die. It's poetic, but he can have that. I don't know why there's no option to give them both what they want. Because Mayel has the right. Well, Alicia has the right to choose to be Mayel or choose to leave the canvas. Nobody else can make that choice for a disabled person. Nobody gets to tell a person with a disability how to feel about their disability, how to interact with their disability, or what to do about their disability. They are adults. And whenever you're telling them what to do, you are communicating to that person that they are primarily a burden to you, which is what Renoir did. Or was it Clair? Who's like, this is what we see all the time, and it's Eileen kind of, doing the cordyceps thing from The Last of Us 2. And it's all about, dealing with this person is so difficult. Yes. Us people with disabilities feel that shit all the time. We hear you loud and clear. But we are people. And it's funny how people are more sympathetic to Renoir being a complete pain in the ass because he's trying to control the chaos with everybody, but we can't sympathize with Aline. And it's because you rarely see her face. And if all someone is their disease, that is what happens. This is not a criticism of the game. The game challenges you to see Aline as a person. That's the whole point of her being the paintress. And then you find out she's a person. And the image of her was all wrong. And I joked early on in playing the game that, like, I'm on Team Paintress, man. Because there being no older women in the game and everybody being, the women at least being impossibly thin and pretty. and the one woman over 33 years old is the villain. I'm like, I jokingly went, nope, Paintress did nothing wrong. I'm on Team Paintress. And then, of course, the big twist is that she's not killing everybody. She's trying to save people. It's a warning. I didn't quite, at that, but I think that the game was prepared for people to not accept that, to go, no, she's old and nobody wants an old lady. Ew, like, ew, she's old, and she's crazy, and get it away. And that's a conversation we do have to have, because that old ladies are gross is such and 40 is not old, I guess she's probably about 50 in game, but women older than 33 are not gross, but it is such an accepted belief in games that no one wants that that people in game dev flat out tell me, no, you're too old. And these are people that are older than me. These are guys in their, later into their 40s than I am, into their 50s. They're still working in games, making games about people who are their kids' age. But women, no, ew. Yeah. And they say it to my face. And it's like, all right. And whether this game accidentally or deliberately made a commentary on that, I think is great, because I do think that one of the big things that concerns me about Gen Z right now is they're terrified of getting old. And if you're lucky, you do get old, right? Getting old is an eventuality if you live long enough. And I live in a reality where people who don't know, people who are younger than me just hear how old I am and go, oh, you're old. Get away, old lady. And then people my own age who have known me for years ago, don't you ever age? When they see pictures, because, I don't look my age. And it's funny, because even with this, people think I do this deliberately, which I did this so I could look my age because I got tired of getting treated like a kid. And that's the cool thing about the game presenting in extremes, because everything is so stark, because everything is so contrasted. People feel very strongly about these things. And it requires a certain maturity in the player to see past the obvious into the nuance. That's the importance of reading into the shadows. And I do think that there's a real worthiness there. Especially when it comes to, comfort your inner child is one of those things that just repels, especially men, from therapy, from healing. Healing is better. Which is why, like, my God, games can be so good at letting guys connect with that, and women, but let's face it, they're mainly made for men, can connect to that little boy inside them, and if done properly, it can be very, very healing. It's not childish to have pure, sincere emotion. And that's why Minoko just bawling over Noko struck me so hard. We all need supportive environments that allow us to do that and not have people feel revulsion. I've never understood that. I know that people feel it. I don't get it, because when especially, when somebody cries that way and it seems sincere, it's human. It's in a way, it's beautiful. It's honest, right? It's honest. It's authentic. It's sincere. There's nothing but good about that. But I know that's a minority view in society, which is the awesome thing about art. great job, Sandfall. Art's beautiful, music's beautiful, plot is confusing, but like I said, reading into the shadows is the point of this game. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. You can sign up for a Leanna Care session yourself, link in the description box below, or please like and subscribe to this channel if you like this content. Thanks for watching Wellness Wednesday on Thursday.